Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. My name is Adrian and today we're going to be doing a sort of a companion video to a video I released last week, and that was the 10 best books I've ever read according to Goodreads. So looking through the books I've read and seeing what had the highest average rating from Goodreads ratings and reviews. Very interesting, some interesting results. With that, go check out that video if you haven't. But today we're going to be going down the other end of the scale, and we're going to look for some of the biggest disagreements I have with the Goodreads user base. So I've ranked all my read books, starting with the lowest average rating on Goodreads, and I'm having a look through them here to see what my 5-star reads are that have the lowest average rating on Goodreads. So these are books that I love, I gave 5 stars, I think are brilliant, but the average Goodreads user says is nah, not good, poor. All of these I'm imagining are going to be in the 3-star range rather than the 4-point-something star range. So we'll see what comes up, but I have a good idea at some of the things on here and I'm probably not going to be very happy. So let's jump straight in with the lowest rated book on Goodreads I can find that I personally have given 5 stars. Okay, first up, no surprise whatsoever here, unfortunately, and that is the lowest rated book I've read on Goodreads that I personally have given 5 stars is A Shadow in Summer by Daniel Abraham. This is the first book of the Long Price Quartet series, and Goodreads has given it 3.62. That's nearly a 3.5 star read. That is incredibly low, and it hurts my soul a little bit. I will not be surprised if I see the rest of the Long Price Quartet on this list, but we'll have to wait and see. For the minute, what I will say is I love this series. It is the best complete series I think I've read this year, read the whole series of this year. It is slow, it is plodding. It is slow, it is political, it is thoughtful and thought-provoking, and it is by no means action-packed. And actually, A Shadow in Summer, the first book, is not action-packed at all. It has very little action. Yet I loved it. It is beautiful, to coin a phrase from Alan. It is Shakespearean in its tragedy. And I think this series is beautiful, and I can understand why people don't like it, but it makes me so sad. This series is incredible. All of these books I have given 5 stars, and the fact that A Shadow in Summer is at 3.62 is just painful to me. Right, let's get scrolling for the next 5-star review from me. Okay, no surprise here. Next up with a 3.89 is A Betrayal in Winter, book 2 of the Long Price Quartet. See my previous statement about A Shadow in Summer. I love this series. This is painful. Let's keep going. Right, my next lowest rated 5-star read is... So I've not even found it yet, and we're up right around the 4.0 mark here, and I still haven't found my next 5-star. So not as lowly rated as I thought some of these would be. Right, next up. Okay, no surprise. 4.03, An Autumn War by Daniel Abraham, book 3 in the Long Price Quartet. Surprisingly, lower rated than A Price of Spring, which I've not seen yet. I actually think I prefer An Autumn War to A Price of Spring personally, but there we go. I suppose last books of the series should have a higher rating because you've whittled out all the people who don't like the books for whatever reason. Yeah, see my previous statements once again. Next up, here we go, not the Long Price Quartet. So this is number 4, but this is not the Long Price Quartet. This is The Empress of Salt and Fortune by Ni Vo. This is a 4.04 rating, average rating on Goodreads. I gave this a 5-star. This is a novella. It is the first in the Singing Hill cycle, and it is beautiful. The way Ni Vo writes this story on multiple levels, in sort of multiple times, with multiple characters, I think is done very well. I think they're incredibly economical with their word usage. There's not any wasted words. This story uses exactly the words it needs to convey exactly the message it wants to convey, and it is possibly the best novella I've ever read. I don't read loads of novellas and short stories, so that is, again, take that with a grain of salt. But for a novella to get 5 stars from me, it has to be something special. And this book was something special. I do wonder if this is rated lower because of the format, because it's a novella and people didn't have the time to really dig into it. But I think it is beautiful. And if you want a quick read in an afternoon, pick up The Empress of Salt and Fortune. It is so good. The second book in that series is also good. I didn't give it 5 stars though. It's called When the Tiger Came Down the Mountain. I think I only gave it 4 stars. So yeah, but The Empress of Salt and Fortune, read it. I do not think you'll be disappointed, even though the Goodreads public as a whole maybe thinks you will be. Next up, number 5, and this is a fantasy standalone with an average rating of 4.05 stars. This is Tigana by Guy Gavriel Kay. Oh, seriously, these are some of my favourite books that are coming down in this low average rating. Maybe I am a niche market. Maybe I like things that the general population doesn't like so much. But Tigana, for me, is just absolutely wonderful. It is a masterclass of standalone fantasy. It is relatively low magic. The prose is beautiful. There is one scene relatively early on that I don't really get and I don't really like. Some people I've heard comment that the women aren't written incredibly well, and that might be true. I'd have to give it a reread to really think about that a little bit more. But I think the prose is beautiful, and as always with Guy Gavriel Kay, his theming is incredible. It is thematically rich and thematically poignant, and a bit like I'd say with the Long Price Quartet, it is tragic. And it has got that Shakespearean tragedy vibe going on, a bit like the Long Price Quartet. And maybe this is where we see some similarities and stuff that I love and maybe the majority don't love quite so much. But I think it's done incredibly well. I think some of the characters are done amazingly well. And the themes are just wonderful. Themes of memory and identity and nationality. Themes of what it is to really exist if you can't be remembered. It's just done so well, and that really hurts to be that my 5th lowest 5-star read on Goodreads. Man. Right, let's keep going. Number 6, no surprise, A Price of Spring, Long Price Quartet, book number 4, 4.08. So it's gone up 0.04 from An Autumn War, as we've again filtered out some of the people who maybe the series wasn't for. Everything I've said already, read into this book as well. This is a great end to a great series, in my personal humble opinion. Oh, interesting. So up next at number 7 is the first book of the Winnowing Flame trilogy. That's The Ninth Reign by Jen Williams. I read this a couple of months ago and I absolutely adored it. It's in with a 4.11 average rating. Again, I gave this 5 stars. I think this was an incredible opening to a trilogy. I love the world that Jen Williams has built here. I love that she just takes everything and just throws it at it and sees what sticks. I think that it's done very well. I think it has interesting different elements. Now, the first book is very fantasy with a little bit of technology in there, maybe very minor steampunk elements, like tiny. But it does get more sci-fi as you go. But yeah, this is a really good first book in a trilogy. I think the trilogy has slotted into my top 10 books, my top 10 series of all time. So this is the second best book in that trilogy for me. I think it's not quite as good as the final book, which is called The Poison Song. And I do think it is better than The Bitter Twins, though, which is book 2. So yeah, it is new. It is a newer book than some of these others. So maybe as more people pick it up, more people will find it hits the spot that they like. It'll get those people who are in the niche it's looking to get to. But I really hope this does do better, because as a new British author, I think Jen Williams is great, and I think that I would definitely be reading more of her stuff if it's anything at all like the Winnowing Flame trilogy. So we're starting to get into some more reasonable ratings here. These aren't ridiculously low anymore. They're lowish, but yeah, not ridiculously low like A Shadow in the Summer was, unfortunately. My 8th lowest rated 5-star read is The Lord of Chaos by Robert Jordan. So this is the Wheel of Time book 6. It is not my favourite Wheel of Time book, do not get me wrong. It was a 5-star read though. It was still a 5-star read for me. I still really enjoyed it. The only reason I didn't love it like really as much as I could have done would be that it followed 2 of real absolute bangers. The Shadow Rising book 4 is possibly my favourite, or very close to my favourite Wheel of Time book. Fires of Heaven is incredible. I gave 5 stars as well, I believe. The Lord of Chaos is a little bit slower, but it has such a banger of an ending. The fact that this is down at 4.13, that people have got through 6 books and they don't leave the ending of this book on a "oh, that was good" and like give it the the 5-star bump because the ending was incredible. It surprises me greatly. Interesting that I feel like there are lots of other Wheel of Time books who are rated lower than this, but they didn't get 5 stars from me. So for this to be the first 5-star one for me at this lower rating is very interesting. In at number 9 on this list is going to be the first Jim Butcher on this list, and that is Grave Peril. So I know lots of people think book 4 is really where the Dresden Files gets going. That's Summer Night. For me, I actually prefer Grave Peril to Summer Night, and as such it is a 5-star read for me. I really, really love it. It's down as an average rating of 4.13. Now, that is low. I imagine it's nowhere near as low as Full Moon is, book 2, but this is where the world starts to open up. This is where we really start to see the plan that Jim Butcher has for Harry and for the Dresden Files as a whole. I think it's a very solid book. What is interesting though is, and I've been guilty of this myself in the past, when you go through, especially when I joined Goodreads, I went through and rated all the Dresden Files because I'd read them multiple times before I ever joined Goodreads. And I almost went through and felt like I needed to not give so many of them 5 stars because it felt silly that this was a series where of the 15 books, 12 or 13 of them were 5-star reads. It didn't really differentiate them. But I think it's fair. I think it was fair to give this 5 stars. I've had to go back and actually up some of my star ratings on Goodreads for this series because it's so, so, so good. And I do wonder if stuff like Grave Peril here gets hurt by being compared to the later Dresden books, which are also bangers and 5-star reads. And it gets a lower rating because it doesn't compare to them. Maybe, maybe not. In at number 10, I was going to say this will be the last one, but actually there's a bit of a tie at number 10. So I'll mention these 3 that are in joint at number 10 for their average rating on Goodreads. They are Knife of Dreams, which is book 11 in the Wheel of Time, Malice, which is book 1 of the Banished Lands, well, particularly The Faithful and the Fallen by John Gwynne, and a fantasy standalone, Guns of the Dawn by Adrian Tchaikovsky, all in at 4.14, so joint 10th on my list. I love all of these books. Knife of Dreams, book 11 for Wheel of Time, was an absolute banger, back on form after a weak book 10, and it's the last book written by Robert Jordan in that series on his own, and just a very, very solid book. There are some weird gender things going on, as there normally is in the Wheel of Time, which maybe people have scaled down their ratings because they didn't like that. I don't know. But yeah, an absolute banger, back on form after a weak book 10, in my opinion. Guns of the Dawn is a wonderful standalone flintlock fantasy by Adrian Tchaikovsky. I talk about Tchaikovsky a lot at the minute. I've read a lot of his books recently. And Guns of the Dawn is done incredibly well. So take a Jane Austen novel, mesh it with classic flintlock fantasy, and you have Guns of the Dawn. We get to follow Emily Marshwick, who is a insanely interesting character. I think she's doing it incredibly well, and I love that we get to see how she reacts in war. I like that it explores themes, and again, we're talking a fantasy book written by someone who's very much a sci-fi author as well. We get really good themes. We get themes of what it is to go to war. What are you actually fighting for? Is there ever a just war? Is that a thing? What is the knowledge of what's happening in the war back home? How does propaganda fit into all this? Like, do we ever really know what the people in charge are sending us to war for? Who knows? And I just think it's done very, very well. And then just to quickly talk on Malice. Malice is my least favourite of the Faithful and the Fallen books. I think it is technically the worst, and it is still a 5-star read. Need I say more? You guys should read The Faithful and the Fallen, especially if you like combat written very well in your fantasy books. It's not over described. There's a lot of combat, but there's always a reason for it. There's always something at stake other than who wins the battle. And I think some of the characters we get here are incredibly, incredibly good. And just finally, I've got to give it a mention, because coming in at 0.01 star rated higher than those three is A Memory Called Empire by Arcady Martin, which is the first book in my new favourite sci-fi series of all time. The Tigana duology. This is A Memory Called Empire, and then it's followed by Desolation Called Peace. But these books are beautiful and are brilliant, and you guys should read them. Enough said. Check out my Should I Read the Tigana duology video if you want to know more about that one. So there you go, some painful ones towards the end. Those slightly higher rated ones, not so much. They were okay. I can understand why they were where they were, but the Long Price Quartet, I knew it was going to be there and it hurt. Tigana, I didn't really realise it would be that lowly rated, and that really did hurt. And then The Empress of Salt and Fortune is my favourite novella I think I've ever read. So the fact that that is so low, I've surely got to put down to the format. It must be because it's a novella, surely, because it is beautiful. And I can't believe that people have got to the end of an afternoon sitting reading that book and gone, yeah, that was okay. It's just incredible. So there we go. Those are the six. Those are the six. The 4 Long Price Quartet, Tigana, and The Empress of Salt and Fortune. They're the ones that really hurt me, because they are rated incredibly, incredibly lowly, unfortunately. But there we go, another video of me disagreeing with the Goodreads users. I hope you've enjoyed it. Like this video if you've enjoyed it. Subscribe if you want to see more of this content, and hopefully I'll see you guys again soon.